Happy New Year, everybody. It's 2016, and welcome to the first episode of the new year. I'm very happy to bring a very special guest on today, Eamon Ambrose, who is an author and a blogger and a book reviewer. So I thought this would be a great show to start off the new year. Very happy to have Eamon with me today. As always, you can find the archives of the show at hankgarner.com, and I would appreciate it if you would go there and click on the iTunes link and leave a comment and rate the show if you would. That helps new people find the show each and every week. Thank you so much for joining me. Last year we had a stellar 2015, broke all sorts of personal records, and I just wanted to say thank you for joining me. And I hope that we'll continue to grow the show in 2016 and bring you the kind of content that you have come accustomed to getting each week. Without further ado, join me in welcoming Eamon Ambrose to the show. Thanks for joining me again for the Author Stories podcast, where I bring you the story behind the stories and the storytellers. This is our very first episode of 2016, and Eamon Ambrose is my guest today, and I've been wanting to connect with him for quite some time, and I'm so happy that you could join us today, Eamon. You have a fascinating story, and I'm loving what you're doing in your new serial, 0 Hour, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Hank. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, as we always do, the first question I lead off with is, how did you first know that you wanted to be a writer?
It took a while, to be honest. I spent a couple of years. There was a long period of time where I hadn't read for a long time, and a couple of years ago, certain things happened, and I decided, it was a good time to go back to reading again, and sort of it'd been a good, I'd say, probably 10 years before I'd read anything decent. And I decided, I'm going to go back and do it again. The Kindle was just starting to get popular at the time, and I kind of went back to that. I started with that and started reading again on the Kindle. And during that time, I started finding all these new books and new authors that I hadn't heard about before. And then I decided, well, maybe I should I'm going to start a blog and start reviewing books, and just as a hobby. It was never going to be anything else. And so I started the blog, and it all sort of sprang from there. And about probably just the inclination had been there to start writing at some stage, and I had planned on it, but it took a while for me to sort of get the confidence to do it. But it helped the fact that I had read all these great books and met all these great authors as well, which was very helpful.
As a child, did you see yourself as a storyteller at all?
I toyed with the idea when I was younger. I think I was a huge reader when I was a teenager into my sort of early 20s. And I had toyed with the idea, but I ended up going into music, which is still a sort of creative and still writing it to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But that sort of kept me away from it for a long time then. So when I sort of left the music business, then I came back to I just had to come back to a regular life and get a day job and stuff like that. And it was still nice to have sort of a creative outlet. So writing helped out a lot as well.
Do you, now that you are a writer and you are a sought after critic, and do you see any parallels between the creative endeavor with music and with writing fiction? Do you see any overlap between those two things?
I think the way the business works, there was a little bit. The good thing about the publishing and the writing business at the moment is that it learned a lot from the mistakes that the music business made. So in terms of publishing and how authors are treated and stuff like that, it made a big difference, I think. Creatively, there is a certain amount of overlap. I think, especially if you're working a lot with lyrics and stuff like that. There's always some. And again, if you're a self-published author, there is a certain amount of similarity in the sense that you have to design your own covers and you have to design, your own promotional merchandise and stuff like that. So there is a certain amount of overlap there, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember, I don't know, I guess it's been getting close to 10 years ago now. I guess when MySpace really kind of blew up and people were maybe between 8 and 10 years ago, I guess, whatever it was. You had all of these indie bands and musicians, and my wife and I actually met several of them, and we promoted some local concerts and things like that with some indie artists. And I was blown away at the time at how me, as a kind of a sideline guy, could see how the mechanics of the music industry were working now, and how these artists could literally record and produce an album in a spare bedroom at home, and then promote it themselves, and there were a lot of people that began realizing that they could actually make a living as a musician. They weren't gonna have Rolling Stones pounds of cocaine a day money. But who needs that anyway, But you could actually make a living.
Absolutely. I mean, the problem with me was I had just left the business around the time that was starting to happen, and I think looking back, if I had all those, if I had everything that's available now to me then, I think it probably would have been a much different outcome. But you can't look back on it too much. But
sure.
But at the moment, it's a great place to be if you're a musician. I think if you want to put the work in and get everything out there, it's absolutely one of the best times to be in the music business, I think.
Yeah.
Sure, and they still haven't gotten it right, but I think a lot of the publishers are turning around now and looking towards the indie scene and seeing, and it's happening the same with the publishing industry as well.
Yeah, that was my where I was going with that, is that then a few years later, it seems like publishing kind of discovered the same thing, and of course with the help of people like Amazon, who kind of provided a framework for that to happen in.
Sure.
Yeah, and then indie all of a sudden became kind of cool, instead of the guys. It used to be self-publishing was this looked down upon thing. Well, if you can't be a real writer, then you can pay someone to publish your book, and that's absolutely not the case anymore.
Yeah, well, I think it's still there to a certain extent. I've sort of seen it myself even since I started, but it's definitely much easier to get out there now. There's definitely much more credibility if you have a good product, I think.
Yeah. So what gave you the idea for 0 Hour?
It started off originally. I had.
Okay, now we're back. Okay, so you say the story is not that different than people are used to, but what gave you the kernel of the idea for that story? I mean, it's gotten rave reviews. It's a very mind-bending story. Where did the first thought for it come from?
I think it was probably I think I'd watched a movie called Ex Machina.
Okay.
And it had dealt a lot with AI and how it's perceived and how people think it should be used and how people actually end up using it. And it kind of got into my head through that. I wanted to do two things with the story. I wanted to sort of look at how AI is used and how it might be used in the future, and I wanted also to have a sort of a human edge to it, where the protagonist just wakes up all of a sudden and doesn't know where they are or what's happened briefly, and somebody basically everything is they've lost everything, that there's nothing left at this stage, and all they have left to do is find out the answers if they can. And it just interested me to where I could take it, because I didn't really outline a whole lot of it. I wrote a lot of it basically as it went, and a lot of the big changes came to me afterwards. I didn't really. I had, like I say, outlines are great, but they can change. And I had sort of basic beginning, middle, and ending for it.
Right.
But everything else, some of the other stuff that happened in between, just sort of came. It just sort of came to me. But I'm hugely influenced by watching other films and reading other books, and I'm sure other stuff I'd read in between sort of came into it. But for me, it was sort of an exercise in storytelling in a way, because again, the other big thing about 0 Hour is that it's written in second person,
right?
And that again, there was a reason for that. So that's how I was able to incorporate the story I did into it.
Well, and second person is very hard to pull off.
Yeah,
and it's very jarring for the reader, because we're not used to that. I think most people are very used to third person. Harry, arrived at Hogwarts. Or first person. Seems like a lot of young adult is first person. You get really connected with that, with the protagonist thoughts, and you can do a lot of internal dialogue that very easily that way. But second person, I think it's when you first crack that open, boy, it's very immersive. And did you get any feedback from people about the way you approached the viewpoint of the character?
Yeah, and I honestly expected to be a lot of negative feedback about it, but strangely enough, most of the stuff that I've heard back has been really good about it. And a lot of people compare it to sort of like playing a Dungeons and Dragons game,
yes,
or and there was a certain element of that. I actually remember reading books like that when I was younger, and while I was never a big Dungeons and Dragons fan, because there was really no one in my area that played it,
right?
But the effect that had was really, it was like when the early video games came out as well. It's very immersive, but at the same time there's an outside influence, and the reason the book that I read that sort of made me change my mind about it, I made me decide to write in second person, was Forbes West's Nighthawks at the Mission, which is a great book, and to pull off a full novel in second person is not an easy thing to do, I don't think. Yeah. And Forbes did a great job on that, and it's a great story, and I really liked it. It's original, it's satirical, it's got everything for me.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun as well.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's and like we both know Forbes, but it does a lot of him in it too. But
no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, but to me it was a great story at the same time, and it was the concept, the story, and the combination of the second person really, really worked with that for me. And that was sort of the one book I used as my benchmark when I started writing this.
I was going to say that you mentioned early video games, and it definitely gives me the nostalgic feeling of those early text-based adventure games from the early 80s. I'm really it makes me wonder why more people don't do it, and I know why more people don't do it. It's very hard to do. It's very easy to narrate a story. It's very difficult to control the reader's eyes, so to speak, to fully immerse them. But you did get some very positive feedback on 0 Hour, and as a matter of fact, even Hugh Howey blurbed the front of it for you. How did that come about?
I actually, when I'd written it, there's always that sort of crippling self-doubt that we get as writers, and I think that
I know nothing about that. Ha ha ha. Go ahead.
Well, anyway, I said I'd literally just written it, finished it, and I was happy with it. And I'd sent it. I think actually he was the first person I'd sent it to, actually.
Nice.
So I decided he was in South Africa at the time. He was waiting for his fantastic boat to be finished.
Yeah.
And so I think he had a little bit of spare time. So I sent him a quick email and asked him would he be interested in reading it. And he said he would, which was great. Now, the only reason I did ask him was I knew that he would be brutally honest with me if he didn't like it. And if he didn't like it, that was it. I was never going to write another thing again. So I sent him the story, and he got back to me a couple of hours later, and he said he loved it. And he just liked the concept, he liked the story, he loved the ending especially. And so I was obviously delighted. And I asked him, I straight out asked him, okay, thank you very much. Would you be interested in blurbing it for me? And he said yes, and that was it. So
nice.
there was no there was no long conversations. There was no begging to be done. I just asked him straight out. I told him, okay, I know I'm being a bit cheeky. I've never written anything before, but it was a last minute thing as well. I hadn't thought about it when I sent it to him, but the fact that he liked it so much, I felt it was okay to ask him, and he said yes. So
sure.
that's it.
Now, you first envisioned this as a standalone story, didn't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and it is now a serial. There are 3 parts to it. Tell me a little bit about that process, because I've had a similar thing happen with one of my stories here lately.
Yeah.
But it's for me, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, but just for me, it was I had an idea that was just a self-contained idea, and then people started responding very positively to it. And then I was like, oh my gosh, how can I, take this farther? What was that process like for you when you did start getting positive feedback, and did people start asking for more? Did you see an open end that you could take this farther, or kind of walk me through what that process is like for you, taking this self-contained thing and expanding that?
Yeah, I think with a lot of short stories, you have to leave a certain amount to the reader's imagination.
Yeah.
And what happens at the end of Zero, or there is a sort of it is left open, but it wasn't intentional, and it was basically so you could figure out what happened yourself.
Right.
But so what happened was, after I gave it to Hugh, the next person I gave it to was my wife, Maria, and she loves to read as well, but she's not a sci-fi reader. She hates sci-fi. but I hadn't told her I was writing it, so she was so surprised that I'd written something that she said, okay, I'll read it. And so she read it, and I left it to her. She didn't get back to me for a couple of hours, so I was getting worried, and I was at work, and she sent me a text, and I just said, well, did you read it? And she goes, yes. And her next text was, well, what happens next? And I just texted her back, I don't know. So that was it. So I and a couple of other people after that had gotten back to me as well, and some of the reviews that went up later on again said they'd love to hear more about what happened. So I started to think about the story and expanded in my mind a little bit. Obviously, I did.
Sorry, everybody. We were having some Skype issues here, and I apologize for that, but we'll pick up the conversation right here.
If I can get it done in time. I don't have a whole lot of time to write, which is the problem for me. But when I do, I've actually sort of gotten into a routine where when I'm at work, I go out to my car on my lunch break and I write for that hour. And that's basically 5 days a week. So that's most of my writing is done in the car on my lunch break. So that's where I wrote all of Zero is in my car.
I can relate to that more than you know.
Because I find when I get home, it's you sort of just so many distractions. I've got 3 kids, and it's very easy to sort of get lazy and settle down. But I think if you get yourself into a habit of doing something, it's great, because I actually enjoy writing more. I anticipate my lunch break every day and just straight out of the car, and I actually it seems to be fairly productive for me. I do a little bit of writing at home, but not as much as I probably should. But I think if I sort of work out a better workspace eventually, I might do a little bit more at home.
Yeah, that was definitely beneficial to me to have a space to go to. But you know, you're absolutely right. Having one of the skills that every writer, I think, should develop is being able to pick your story up no matter where, and get some work done. If you again, just my opinion, but if you hold those things as sacred and precious, you know, then all you need to completely break down your writing is to not have those things available, you know. So if you can go to your car and write on your lunch break, man, that sure is a boon for your productivity for sure.
Yeah. It does. It does. I think I still need to probably discipline myself a bit more to do that and to write more on the fly, and sort of, you know, if you're sort of, you know, if you're waiting somewhere, or it's not always easy to do it though. You know, you can't always just pull a laptop or whatever.
Right. Exactly. How do you pick the story up each day? When you close a writing session, do you you know, some people say they'll stop right in the middle of some action or dialogue so that it's very easy to pick back up, or do you kind of have writing sessions scheduled out? On this day I'm going to accomplish this or this. Is there anything like that you rely upon to help you get back into it each day?
Not really. I mean, I think I get it. Like, at the moment, I'm writing pretty much on the fly. So now the only disadvantage of the way I'm doing it at the moment is that if I'm on my lunch break and I've got 5 minutes left, and all of a sudden I've got this great idea, you know, I have to sort of get it down somewhere, and you know, you just said, oh my God, if I just had 5 more minutes, I could finish this. But you need to sort of just keep your ideas down, and once you can, it actually is probably, in some ways it might be good because it gives you a bit more time to think about it before you actually put it down.
True.
But it kind of goes both ways, I think.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of writing myself notes at the bottom of my work in progress, so that if a great idea comes to me, I'll just put an incomplete sentence there that makes sense to me at the time, and if someone else were to come along and read the things I wrote there, they'd probably think it was the ramblings of a madman or something. But you know, it works for me.
Yeah, I'm very unorganized, so it's if I did leave notes somewhere, I'd probably lose them. So I try and keep everything in my head if I can. I'm not a big. I see some people who you know, they'll start a book and they'll put a big wall chart on the wall, and they'll you know, the post-it notes sticking out everywhere. You know, right. Everything planned out. I don't think I could do that. I'm just so disorganized. But I think that's probably why I write on the fly a lot. Yeah. So but I probably at some stage I should sit down and probably try to figure it out and plan my stuff a little better. So I think eventually with time, again, I'm just a novice as far as I'm concerned. So, you know, I'll pick up these skills as I go along.
Yeah, well, and that's the best way to do it is to get in there and actually do it. There's a lot of people that, you know, this is where critics sometimes lose some credibility. I think is that you know, you can sit and you can tear someone else's work apart all day long, but if you've never actually crafted a story yourself, you know, you don't understand some of those things. So that's actually doing it is one of the best things to actually become a writer. You've got to write.
Yeah.
How about your blog and your other writing? Since you've started fiction writing, has that changed? Are you still keeping up the blog? And I know you write reviews and things for other sites.
Yeah.
Kind of, how did some of that writing come about, and how is that changing now that you're writing fiction? To
be honest, I've been cutting back on the reviewing a little bit. It's just for time reasons. I've still been putting stuff up on the blog, so I'll keep that going for now. I was writing for some websites and stuff, which I gotten. There's two ways you can be a book reviewer. You can be one for a publication or a website, who will send you books, or who will ask you to contact, publishers who send you books. So I was doing that for a while. I was getting sent an awful lot of books, and I was getting through most of them and reviewing what I could. But what I do on the blog is much different. I think what I do on the blog is I wouldn't consider myself a critic. I just put, I write reviews of books I like on my blog. I don't really spend much time with the negative stuff. I don't think it's, there's too much of that around already. So what's on my blog is books that I've read that I really, really liked, generally. So it started, I think the very first one I reviewed was Wool. And so it started from there. And I think when the blog got a little more popular, that's when other people started coming to me and asking me to write articles for them. And so there's a couple of websites that I've been doing stuff for. But for now, I have to kind of cut it back a little bit. So I'll wait and see. But I'm still going to keep my own blog up, and again, I'll be continuing just to review books that that come across my way and that I like. I think the great thing about when I started reviewing was it introduced me to all these people. I'd started reviewing. I hadn't originally intended just doing indie stuff, but I ended up doing mostly indie stuff. And that puts you in touch with a lot of people, and I sort of built up a sort of circle of friends and authors, and that's I've kept that up over the last 2 years. So it's great to see how these people work as well. And part of the reason that I kept it going was that I could see how all these authors were releasing their books and how they were doing, and all the work they were putting into it, and that essentially taught me an awful lot about the business, and it helped me when I decided I was going to do it.
Absolutely, and it kind of I talk to a lot of people that want to know how they can get their name out there, how they can start building an audience and things like that. And one way that you can do that is to do something that benefits other people, and start a podcast, start a blog, and review books and help other people build their platform, and then that inherently helps you do the same, make connections and things like that. There's something that I don't know what it is, but business tends to make people lose sight of the fact that just being a decent human being and doing good for others, is good for you as well. Not that you do those things for that reason, but it helps.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons I kept the blog going, is because I wasn't doing it to sort of to get my name out there. It didn't bother me if nobody read it, but I think the fact that a lot of authors who are just starting off, it's hard for them to get reviews, and if I saw a book that was really, really good, there was no problem with me giving a good review, and I've never given a book a good review that didn't deserve one.
Right.
So everything that's on my blog, I don't even put a rating on my blog. I might put it on the Amazon review just to help the author, but as the reviews go up, they're up as they are, and they don't change. So I tend to look at if I can give feedback to an author, I'll give them feedback privately. If there's sort of editing issues, I'll tell them beforehand.
Sure.
It happens to everybody. It happened to me as well. But it helps. It doesn't hurt to help people out, and if I can help people out, I always will. And I think that's probably the reason I've sort of gotten so many friends over the last couple of years, is that I have helped people out when I can, so and I still will when I can. There's a lot of people out there who just they'll just sit back and they'll take the advice, but they won't give any out themselves.
Right.
And I think I was lucky in that the people that I had around me were very supportive, and that they did help as much as they could. I didn't ask for too much help at the start. I didn't even tell a lot of people I was bringing the book out. So I just wanted to see what would happen. There was no big plan there.
Well, and in this time that we live in now, with this great, robust indie community and hybrid community, it's very easy now to get that support that you need, and writers don't have to be these lone wolves anymore that kind of sit in a dark corner and hope that success will find them one day. That you can actually get out there and you can make friends and you can make acquaintances, and you can actually help each other do that. This is a fascinating time that we live in. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think that's what drew me to it in the first place. I think was it with the sort of the camaraderie and the way everybody sort of helped each other out in the community. And I know everybody's not going to be great at it, but
sure,
there's always going to be sort of some bad eggs in it. But
yeah,
generally the atmosphere and the way people work together is fantastic. And I didn't realize how much that happened until I actually started till I put the book out myself.
Yeah. And I love your attitude about keeping things positive and giving people personal feedback if you think it's warranted. There's a lot of negativity in the world outside of you've got this great camaraderie, and then there seem to be those few bad eggs that you mentioned who just seem to love wreaking havoc. And I won't post negative reviews. If I read something I don't like, I'm like you. I'll try to have a conversation with someone and maybe point out some things that I see. But I try to keep it from a humble place, because I know I'm not perfect by any means, and I appreciated people that have helped me. But yeah, I think there's enough negativity without adding to that. I would much rather come from a place of offering help than to just skewer someone publicly.
Yeah.
There's enough of that in the world.
Yeah, I mean that's partly the reason I haven't done as much reviewing for other publications and stuff, is because you have to be critical there, and it really wasn't me. I don't think. I'd rather just kind of tell people about books I liked rather than tear down someone who's written some that other people may interpret differently.
Yeah.
But I mean, not everyone's going to write a great book, but I think stuff like Amazon reviews and Goodreads reviews probably will help to filter out the really bad stuff.
Right. Eamon, what do you see for the future of publishing? We're starting a brand new year. Everybody's the beginning of the year is always exciting for me, because you kind of get a fresh chance to do things all over again and to make things happen, and it's kind of invigorating. How do you see 2016 going, and do you see have you noticed any trends maybe the last couple of years that you've been paying attention to this and then getting into it yourself? Do you see things coming up and preparing for things?
I mean, there have been a lot of trends, and a lot of them have been sort of to do with marketing and getting an author platform and stuff like that. And that seems to have changed an awful lot in the last couple of years. People tend to follow, somebody will come up with the trend, and someone will follow it for a while, and then something else comes up and everybody follows that one instead. And I think at the moment, I did sort of things probably the wrong way a lot when I started off, whereas a lot of people sort of a lot of people sort of say that you have to build your author platform. I didn't have an author platform when I started, when I put Zero out. To a great extent, I still don't. Now, it's something I do need to work on, and I probably will do at some stage. But I think the trends are. I mean, I probably did Zero Hour a little bit as a trend. I think there's a trend towards short stories now, which is great. And the trend towards Kindle Unlimited is something that's promising. I think it's actually a lot better than people give it credit for.
Yeah.
It's helped me. It certainly helped me an awful lot, even with the short story, which a lot of people said it wouldn't when they changed their terms recently. But I think it's hard to figure out where it's going to go. I think short stories are going to probably be more popular, especially on Kindle Unlimited, because they're fast reads, and people tend to sort of, if you've got a short attention span, it's people want to get their money's worth on Kindle Unlimited as well. So if they download a lot of shorts, it may look better for them. They may enjoy it more. I think the reason shorts are probably becoming so popular is just people. But I think people don't have the attention span for big, huge tomes anymore. I mean, you see, when I was reviewing, one thing I noticed was I'd get a sack of books from a publisher, and the fantasy ones were like bricks, 1,000-page long. I just looked at them and I just go, I have to go through all this again. It's just so time consuming. And the worst thing about me being a book reviewer is that I'm a really slow reader. but I think I don't think everything needs to be short, but I think there will be sort of a trend towards serials. I think the big one this year was obviously Hugh Howey's Beacon 23, which was great.
Right.
I think that story was probably similar to mine in that I don't think he had a full outline for it, and it was just a short story to start with. I kind of used that a little bit as a sort of a template for what I was doing with Zero Hour as well. But I think that in the business, I think things may probably change a lot over the next year. I think that indie authors, it's happening already. I know from speaking to people that I knew from the publishing industry that the big traditional publishers are starting to look at the Amazon charts. They're starting to look at indie authors that are doing really well. So that's where I think they're starting to use that now much more than they were using agents and stuff like that before. So that they're actively looking for new work. So if you've got a book that's really doing well on Amazon, there's a good chance you'll be contacted by at some stage by them. But again, it may not be a good thing. If you've got a book that's doing really well on Amazon, you're probably better off just staying on your own. But
yeah, I think Nick Cole has spoken to that before.
Yeah.
with the Wasteland Saga. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it could be different. I mean, I'm interested to see how Jason Gurley's Eleanor does when it comes out this month. I really, really hope it does well, because it's a fantastic book, and it's one of my favourite books of all time. I really, really like it. Yeah. Again, he was someone that I looked at when I was thinking of putting Zero Hour out, as far as, because a lot of his success was with short stories,
right?
And they were really done. He got obviously he was a designer, so he had great quality covers, and he had great formatting, and he had everything. It looked, as a package, it was great. So I think I'd like to see him do well with that.
Oh, I would too. And Jason was actually episode 1 of this podcast, and he's coming back in a couple of weeks to revisit and talk about this re-release of Eleanor. So that's going to be a great show, I hope.
Great, I look forward to that.
But yeah, I'm with you. I hope that it's a breakout success. I really do. I'm really looking forward to watching the trajectory of that book. And I agree with you about serials. There's something to be said for giving your audience. I hate that word. I hate all the words that we associate with people that read our stuff. But you know what I mean. I love giving people something and getting near immediate feedback. Within a day or two, you start hearing things. And then, when Hugh started talking about that with Wool, that he put the story out, and then he talked about how wonderful it was to get feedback between these episodes, and I kind of wondered what that was like. And I'm experiencing some of that now with writer's block, and it's really invigorating, and it's really powerful to get that feedback from people and to watch them watch the story as it unfolds. It's really great. So I hope to see a lot of authors doing that, because I think that's going to be a powerful tool in a writer's toolbox coming up.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, at the same time, I think probably most authors might have one or two serials in them. I don't think it's something that they should do all the time.
Yeah.
But I think it's great to have a serial, maybe split it up with a full novel and then bring out another serial, or, I think that's when Hugh brought up, I think he did The Shell Collector before that, which was just a straight novel.
Right.
And then he brought out Beacon 23. I think I just part of the attraction for serials as a reader is it's just they're really quick to read, and you don't feel like you're investing too much time in a big in a large book, even though at the end you end up reading a fairly big one. But it's just the excitement of the you can come back to it at any time, and you can wait for the next part to come out then. So that's part of the attraction for me for serials, and I think that's why it works so well with readers. But I think you need to mix it up a bit, I think, as well, though.
Yeah. Well, I think the story will lend itself that way or not, and you definitely shouldn't force a book into a serial if that's not what the story demands. So
yeah, I think what's happening with some people I've noticed lately is that they're taking a full novel they've written and they're splitting it up into 5 pieces, which I don't think is right. I think if you're writing a serial, write a serial. Don't write a full novel and split it up later on. Just write the serial in parts as you go.
Yeah, I think that's another thing we're going to see is that hopefully the marketing gimmicks are going to kind of play out. There are a lot of things that people have used, and those things may be kind of kitschy and work for a little bit, but I mean, if the story is not envisioned as a serial, don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, when I started off the first couple of weeks, I looked at all these marketing things, and I tried a couple of promotion stuff, and it didn't really work. So I just said, okay, I'm just going to leave it and see what happens. And it basically took off itself. So people say there's another thing I really don't really like when people use it all the time, which is perma-free. I don't agree with that. I think with Kindle Unlimited, there's no need for it now. But it's fine. I think it's fine if it's a short story. But I've seen people putting on full novels for perma-free, and I think it's just a waste.
Yeah.
But there is a certain reader who will only ever read that stuff because it's free. But I think if you have faith in your product, you need to sort of give it some value at least. I think it's fine for a short story, I think, but full novels definitely not.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think Kindle Unlimited definitely squashes that, and you've got to value your product, and if this is something that took you 6 months to write, don't give it away for free. I mean, you can do whatever you want to, but I think we're probably damaging ourselves as writers by perpetuating that and giving people the idea that free is what our stories are worth. And
I think there's an author, a friend of mine, Brian G. Burke, who wrote a fantastic fantasy series called The Other One. It's really, really good story. It's really well written, and the first book I think is around 600 pages.
Wow.
And he had that perma-free for a long time. And the second book is nearly 800 pages. Ooh. So when he brought out the second book, Yeah, I think he was selling it for something like $2.99 or something like that. But I could see him he was getting messages from people asking when the book would be free, and I just thought, you've already gotten book one for free. Surely you could pay a couple of bucks for book two, right. and it was well worth it because it's a fantastic read. But it just angered me to see that book in perma-free. And thankfully he's taken it off now, and he's trying the Kindle Unlimited to see what will happen. But to me it was just a silly thing. But it annoyed me to see someone who put so much, and he put so much work into that book, to see it just sitting there for free. It didn't sit with me very well, But thankfully, I think it'll change from. He's just finishing book 3 now, and I hope it's as good as the other two. It'll be really good.
Heck yeah, I hope so too. I love seeing authors put out great work, but I also love to see them have an audience that appreciates them and values the work. And I don't think we need to give people more excuses not to value what we do.
Oh yeah, I mean, my message to anybody who loves to read books by certain authors is, if you like that author that well, support them. It doesn't cost much. It's price. If he's selling something for 99 cents, you won't even get a cup of coffee for that now.
Right.
So it's. I think the way I am is, if I have an author that I really like, I'll plug their books till the day I die. Everybody, at every chance I get, I'll plug that book. I'll tell people about it. So, if you like an author, tell other people. Get their name out there.
Yeah.
There's so much good stuff that I've read over the last couple of years, and they're really good stuff. I've done my best to sort of to get it out there and to get other people to know and to give those people a chance. So. Yeah.
Well, Eamon, thank you so much for taking time out on your Saturday morning to come on the show. The serial is called 0 Hour, and you should go to Amazon and pick all the copies up now. Eamon, tell everyone where they can connect with you and they can read your blog and follow you as you keep publishing.
Well, the blog is amothegeek.com, so it's EAMOTHEGEEK.com. I need to start out my own website. I'm working on that at the moment. So I'm also on Twitter at Eamon, EAMONAMBROSE. Or I'm on Facebook as well. You can just hit my name up there. Or email. You can email me at Gmail. So eamonambrose@gmail.com. Whatever. So I'm just Google me and find me anything.
Excellent. I'll put all those in the show notes. My friend, I wish you all the success in this coming year, and thank you so much for what you do, and thank you for coming on the show.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Hank. And I actually just read the first story in Writer's Block. I really liked it, so I'm working on. I'm getting to part 2 at the moment, so hopefully in the next couple of days I'll get to it. But it's a great story. So again, because it's a serial, I'm really going to stick with it and see how it goes. So
thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.